Okay, I think I'm live now. Very good morning to all of you. All right, so yes, I can see over here. Okay, the chats. I hope the material is also visible to you. So let's start from where we ended in the last class. If there's any query regarding the novel that we started, we did a kind of compact summary of what Shattered Lines is going to be about, the major themes that we are going to discuss, the major background of partition, of war, of identity crisis. These were the issues that we talked about. All right. Now I have also some of the introductory material for you that you can directly use in your examination. So those, okay, I'll start narrating the same in a while. Let everyone join in. Good morning, Kirti. Okay, Sahil, I hope you know that the classes begin now. Okay, so I'll narrate these. I'll give you some of the passages that you can directly quote in the examinations. All right, so you can take it down, and I'll also make sure that there is some kind of sharing regarding the same. But before that, you will have to note it down. If there's any problem, you can ask me. So, in the very first concept, I want you to introduce to is that of how mirrors and maps have been used as tropes in the novels from the very beginning to the end of the novel. All right, so this is one of the questions that we are going to deal with. So, any problem from the last class, you can ask me. Good morning, Pooja. Good morning, Kushi, Gopal. Okay, Gursima. See, Gursima, we were talking about shadow lines. There were some issues that we talked about, some poignant issues regarding partition, regarding identity crisis, that I'll be repeating while we do the text, so do no need to worry about that. Okay, so there were some passages that I brought for you that you can directly quote in your examination, that you can write in your introduction. So if you are willing, you should be prepared with a pen and paper so that you can take it down. I'll be narrating those to you. Also, we talked about the idea of nationalism, nationhood, and the idea of nation state. So these are the things that are readily available in the study material also. So even if you have missed the class or you could not understand something, you can just read it and come back to me if it is still not understandable. Good morning, Sadaf, Saroj, Sandhya, okay, Nikita, Pooja, Sarabjit, Vidhi. I hope you all are doing well. All right. Okay, people are still joining in. Let's wait for another minute. So you can ask me any problem that you have from the last class. Are you able to understand? See, I've already told you that it's very, very important for you to also read the novel. Because if I'm going to just speak about the novel, give you the summary, it is not going to be that efficient for you. All right, not that effective for you. You have to make sure that you are also making enough efforts on your part. So you have to read the novel. I've already shared this. This is the one that I have. I think it's not the shadow lines. All right, you can buy any edition. That is not a problem. That is not an issue at all. So the idea is that of you also beginning with the novel, and I'm telling you, I'm guaranteeing you, it's such an amazing novel that it's going to change your perspective for literature as well. So you have to read some of it on your own. All right, only then you will be able to make sense of what is happening in the class. Other than that, we are referring to the sole study material. All right, we are taking bits and parts of the same. I'm marking the important pointers for you, so you also need to focus on that. All right, and I'll be also sharing some essays with you. Don't worry about that. But the only thing that I want from your side is to read the novel. All right, do read the master text, not just for examinations. Even if you do not find the time to read it till the examinations, which is very improbable, what you can do even after examination, pick up the novel and read it. This is the only strategy to improve in every which way possible, to improve your speaking skills, to improve your writing skills, to improve your presentation skills, and to score great in the examination. All right. Other than that, you can take soul study material as a supplement material whereby you get help as to you are able to understand that what the text is about, what are the important pointers that I need to keep in mind. All right. I hope you understand that. Okay, let's begin. Okay, Sandhya, ma'am, my question is analyze Amitav Ghosh novel Shadow Lines in a light of its title Shadow Lines. You're asking me about analyzing or how to analyze the idea of shadow lines. So only the very title, the significance of the title will only be clear to you once we are into the novel itself. All right, we are still beginning with it. You will be able to realize. You will be the one who will answer this question on your own. But one hint I can give you for you to ponder on the thing about shadow lines is something which is still unclear. All right, something which cannot be caught. You understand? So this is where you have to form your view of. Very good. Very good, Roshni. Very good, Khushi. Very good, Roshni, that you have already bought the book and you're reading it. It's very good. Excellent. That is what I want you to do. Okay. Use the study material, but read the master text and use the study material. Do both. All right, let's begin. Okay, we will be starting with. Okay, you remember we ended with this momentous event. I told you that May Price's character, who the English woman that Rudeev's love, death is going to be of momentous importance. Why is that? Because there is a poignant issue that we have to deal with after it. That is, what are the reasons? What are the possible reasons that Rudeep laid his life for this woman? What can be the possible reason for the same? All right, what can be the possible aim or the possible, what do we call it, the possible reason? We have talked about the possible aim, the probable reason for the same. Is it just out of love that he does? Is it out of a frantic energy that he felt at that moment that he jumped at the mob and sacrificed his own life? Or is it something more larger and broader than that? That is the question that I asked you in the last class as well, so ponder on it. All right, we will just begin. Okay, just a minute. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, now I found it. So this is the book that I'm going to narrate some introductory part to you as well. So you can either refer to the book if you have already bought it. You see if there is an introduction which has already been given to you. But I'm just pondering on how feasible it would be for me to narrate. For example, I won't be able to know whether you are able to, you know, write it in the same pace or not. Or you know what I'll do? I'll take a picture of the same, share it on the Telegram group. Each one of you can refer to that picture, and we can, while I narrate it from here, you can also look at it down over there. Okay, this is what we will do. Okay, let's do a bit of this, you know, study material that we are referring to, and then we will do this. Okay. Okay, Ria, very good that you have read the book. Okay, good, Simar Kaur. I'll not tell you the exact, see the exact story you will know when you are reading the study material, but yes, I know that it kills the interest at times. Sadaf Singh, the Shadowlands describes as how the life of the narrator is going to change through the war, just like the shadow gets disappeared, the problem faces. Very good. One of the interpretations. So let's begin. So it is on page number 9. We start from here. On 2nd January 1964, May accompanied Pradeep and the narrator's grandmother and Robbie to Dhaka. The narrator's grandmother had learned of an old relative's affair, her father's either brother, who was still in Dhaka. Maya Devi's husband happened to have posted at Dhaka, and both the grandmother and Maya Devi decided to rescue the old man. In Dhaka, the two sisters went to their old house, now occupied by refugees from India. There was tension in the city because of the possibility of communal trouble that particular day, but they still went. The narrator's grandmother was particularly excited for she was going home as a widow for the first time. When they reached the old house, they found that the Khalil, a rickshaw puller, and his family were looking after Jetamoshai out of their meager earnings. When they told the old man of their intentions, he refused to budge. He said he was born there and would die there. All right, I'll just zoom in the image for a better vision. He said he was born there and he would die there. When they failed to persuade him to go, they thought of another way. Khalil would bring him his rickshaw on pretext of going to the court and would follow the car. But the car had not gone very far when it was stopped and attacked by the mob. The security guard traveling in the car somehow managed to scare the people away. At this, they turned their attention to the rickshaw and surrounded it. The narrator's grandmother shouted to the driver to drive away, but May insisted on going to rescue of the old man and ran towards the rickshaw. When Trideep saw her running, he rushed after her and fell upon the rioters. Within minutes, Trideep was killed along with Jetamoshai and Khalil. Since the narrator had not gone with his grandmother and Trideep and Robbie to Dhaka, he got to know the details of the incident leading to Trideep's death from Robbie and May. Parallel to the communal trouble in Dhaka in January 1964, there was a communal trouble in Calcutta. One day, the narrator as a 12-year-old boy waited for the school bus. The bus came, but there were only about a dozen boys in it. He thought that other boys had stayed back to listen to the commentary on the test match because India and England being played at Madras. His Muslim friends Mantu too had not come. The boys told him that it was rumored that the whole supply of the water in the city has been poisoned. So now I'll tell you. Let's discuss this. So the idea is that I've already told you that what happens that Maya Devi and her sister are visiting Dhaka in order to rescue or bring back one of the brother of their father who is still surviving. Alright, they're shocked at the news of his still surviving, so therefore they want to retain him. It is as if they're again trying to find their roots. In the case of the narrator's grandmother, what do you see? The grandmother is very vehemently trying to, or not vehemently would be a negative word over here, but very passionately trying to retain back or wean away or take away some piece of her old identity. That is what she's trying to do here. So for that pretext, she can go to any length. She said, then, oh no, we are going to go to Dhaka and I'm going there as a widow for the first time. And once they are able to, convince this old man that if you come with us, this will happen and this way it will happen and we want to take care of you. And once they realize that they cannot convince this old man in the traditional way, they trick him into believing that they are taking him to the court and therefore they will transport him to the airport and take him home. But what happens on the way is that they are attacked by the rioters while the grandmother of the narrator says that do not leave the car, just rush the car. It is May Price who is also accompanying them, who feels a humanistic urge to save the old man because the mob has transferred to the old man and they have encircled him and Khalil and they're about to kill him. But it is May who strives and sprints towards the rioters to stop them from killing an innocent man. But what happens? Trideep, who is also in the car, just jumps off and falls on the rioters. Although, do you not think that he was aware of the fact that he is going to be killed? Was there any point in him jumping and going towards the rioters? You already know that they were blood hungry. They had these weaponry in their hands. They had this killing instinct on their brains. It was sure that he was about to be killed. But why does he deboot the car? Why does he jumps out of the car and goes in order to save May? Although he might have been also of the view that May could have been saved. Maybe he could have just snatched May away from the crowd. But in that act, do you think there was heroism in that act? Was he heroic at that moment? Is this brash, heroic act also a noble act? This is the question that we have to ponder on, that even though Trideep knew what fate he was going to have, even Trideep, even after having the foreknowledge that this is going to be my death, he still goes on and falls on the rioters, and this is how it has been. All along, the writer has been called, the writer has told us that Trideep has been called a good-for-nothing fellow with no emotions, a loiter, not concerned about anyone. But do you see what a strong sense of emotion does he depict over here? And earlier than this, he has also seen May Price killing a dog on a street, because when she saw that her dog was injured and could not be saved anymore, she mercy kills him. And he tells May that, if something happens like this to me, if I'm not able to move, if I become immobile, the idea of euthanasia, that is, you give me my death or I put an end to my life. So in that moment of him trying to save May Price, and in that moment whereby Thamma, the grandmother, Maya Devi, Robbie, nobody came out of the car. It was Trideep who came out of the car. In that moment, he became the most useful and most heroic character, because although he knew his fate, he was sure that he wanted to save May. And not just this, he was sure that he is going to act according to his conscience. A conscience which tells him that if they have asked the old man to accompany them, it is also their duty to save him as a family. All right, clear? Are you able to understand? Yes, Sridev, ma'am, but how did May survive if because she's a woman? Maybe they left her because of her being a woman. Priyanka, okay, that's great. Happy to know that you are able to learn something out of it. That is what I want. Yes, Kushi, he was in love with me, but also we have seen one thing, that Trideep and me, the relationship that they shared, initially it was very long distance. Then Trideep, as in, did not display a lot of emotions. They did love each other, but the very fact that he could have maybe also just snatched May away and run away from the rioters, but the very fact that he jumped into the crowd and knew what end he is going to meet, and to let go of all the dreams that he had with May of marrying, of having kids, of having a family. He lets go of everything. So it becomes more than love. It transcends every value of love, passion, everything. For that one moment, he showed that he and everyone could have a true belief in humanity. All right, the idea of helping a fellow human being. Yes, May was the most important thing from him, right? He could have, that is the thing, he could have just saved me and gone back. But when he saw that expression on May's face and thought, and one more interpretation of the same is, he did not want May to think that he's not a heroic figure. He wanted to prove it to the world, he wanted to prove it to May. Nikita, yes, you are supposed to read the whole novel. That is what the course is about. Yes. You can also read you should also read the critical essays. Yeah. It is going to be helpful. No study is going to be on off waste to you. Don't worry about that. Okay, Claire? Let's proceed. Okay. It was only 15 years later when he heard the full details of Trideep's death, and he saw the connection between the riots in Dhaka and the subsequent riots in Calcutta. He made this discovery accidentally in 1971 in the air-conditioned room in Teen Murti Nehru Museum Library. There was another incident that had happened in Srinagar just before the riots in Dhaka and Calcutta. The sacred relic here of the Prophet Muhammad, which had been stolen, was recovered on 4th January 1964. Both the loss and recovery of the relic were followed by mass demonstration of dismay and joy respectively. But the incident of the loss led to riots in Kulna and elsewhere in East Pakistan and later in Calcutta. The narrator met May twice, once in 1963 when she came in response to Trideep's letter. The second occasion came 17 years later when he had gone to England for a year to collect materials for his PhD from the Indian Office Library. May used to play the oboe in an orchestra and lived by herself in Islington. Once, when after a performance of orchestra he met her, she at once recognized him and asked him to have dinner with her. After Ela's marriage with Nick, Mrs. Price gave a party at which the disappointed narrator drank excessively. Seeing his condition, May took him to her own lodgings. In this drunkenness, he tried to make sexual advances to May, which she repulsed. Next morning, however, he apologized for his behavior. The narrator met May in London for the last time the evening before he was to return to India. In spite of how he had behaved earlier, she had invited him to dinner. During the dinner, she wondered why he had never asked her how Trideep had died and then proceeded to tell him the story of his death from her point of view. Now, the narrator's grandmother asked the driver to drive away, how she shouted at the grandmother, how she ran towards the rickshaw, how Trideep followed her and pushed her aside, and how the mob had surrounded the rickshaw. She was racked with guilt, believing that it was she who was responsible for Trideep's death and that who would not have got down the car if she hadn't made him too. But she later realized that Trideep had sacrificed himself and that to her a real sacrifice was a mystery. May did not want to be alone that night and asked the narrator to stay. Later they made love to each other. Their togetherness gave the narrator a glimpse of mystery of love, the final redemptive mystery as he calls it. So what do you see here? What is May Price talking about? What do you see? So initially we were talking about as to why did Tridi went off the car and towards the mob. So he intercepted May before reaching the crowd. All right, he pushed her and still made for the mob. He could have just pushed her, held her hand, dragged her back to the car. Why did he not do that? That is the question that we have to think about. It was not just for love. And May says, all these years I thought that, it was me who was responsible. If I had not, come out of the car, maybe Trideep would not have followed me. But she realizes that he had fair square amount of time to get back to the car with her. But why did he not? Yes, Sadia. Okay, do I have? Okay, the option of recording is not with me. Khushi, you're saying maybe he was inspired by May's bravery that even in these people are not hers, she still cares for humanity. Okay. Yes, very good. He was obviously inspired by the bravery. He was obviously inspired by love. And that is what transcended any small emotion. And Gavin, you are answering. Sudeep is the kind of passionate person that if he left that day without intervening and with the death of Tamushai and Khalil, he would have not been able to live with the guilt of it, the fact that he could not do something but didn't. Very good, very, very good. I don't have the option of recording, so kindly do not just. It is not available. The lecture is being recorded anyhow. The authorities are recording it, don't worry. Yes, Sandhya, you can have this one perspective also that Trideep, by throwing himself at the rioters, also made it impossible for May to survive because she had all her life in front of her and she did not get involved with anyone else as such, and that destroyed her life. But that is what sacrifice is about because Trideep in that moment knew more than convincing. For example, I've already told you that there might be a perspective that he wanted to make sure that May did not think that he was a coward, he was a runaway, he was an escapist, or he was inspired by love for May and ran away and wanted to do the right thing. But more important than that, Trideep always wanted to have a clear conscience. That is, he never wanted to go back and think that I could have done something, no matter how insubstantial, and I did not. That is not the kind of person that 3D is. Yes, you want. Or this. We are doing shadow lines, Harsh. Okay, Kevin. Maybe yes, but there are some hints to imply that. Yes, Shruti, the interface has been changed. I also asked the same question. They have reverted back to the old model. Yes, sir. That is the question sometimes we ask. For example, when we read the novel, we are like, why are you going out of the car when there is no helping of these people? They are already dead. Only those who will come out of the car, they are going to increase the count of people who are going to be dead. But that cannot be reasoned with everyone. She felt sympathetic towards the old man that they have dragged out of his house, that you have to accompany us, and the crowd is killing them. And she could not stand the fact that she is just sitting over there. Maybe it will cost her life, but she knows that she's not going to let her go. Yes, Sadia. Yes, Navodita. He had to be a nobleman. Yes. Okay, Nikki, that is completely probable. That happens. It's nothing to question. Yes, Shilpa, the idea that all this time there was no purpose to his life. He had always been searching for a purpose while doing his PhD, while visiting England. So this was his one chance to know and find the real purpose. Yes, Sridev, you have also given the right answer. Yes, Kushi, he did want to show bravery and courage. All right, let's proceed. Now we will come talk about the narrative technique, very important over here. The Shadow Lines is a memory novel. Here, the narrator narrates the event from memory rather than a direct occurrences. All events have either happened to him or he has heard others tell of them. But everything comes to us through the narrator's memory, which means that the narrator, disregarding chronology, proceeds according to what preoccupies him at that moment. When memory takes him to another, irrespective of when the actual event took place, we shall take an example. The novel begins after all the events are over with the narrator writing a sentence in the manner of an omniscient narrator. Who is an omniscient narrator? A narrator who knows everything. The idea of omnipresent, omnipotent is that who is present everywhere, and the idea of omniscient is that who knows everything, a know-all person. So in 1939, 13 years before I was born, my father's Aunt Maya Devi went to England with her husband and her son Srideep. The narrator then immediately switches back to the time when he was 8. The choice of this point of time appears natural because that of Srideep's age too, when he was gone to England, and Srideep was his mentor and role model, and also because that was when he had tried to get him tell him the story to visit England. Sudeep's love for gossiping with street corner acquaintances is mentioned, which leads to his telling them of English relatives of theirs, particularly Mrs. Price and her daughter, May, whom he had said he had recently visited. When the narrator, Child of Fate, tries to correct Sudeep, no one believes him. The mention of May makes the narrator move fast forward to the second of his two meetings with May in 1979 when he goes to England to collect material for his PhD. So, a very important part of here is the first passage, that is, The Shadowlands is a memory novel. Why is it a memory novel? Because it is based on a memory. On the memory of not just the narrator but also the memory of Trideep. That is what he's essentially talking about. There are moments, there are strings of memories which are attached. For example, he talks about the idea of how Trideep is narrating a specific story to him, and then that reminds him of something else, and that reminds us of him of something else. So the idea of having different points, different strings which impetus a specific kind of memory about something else. So this is what we are talking about. The idea also of stream of consciousness, that something reminds you of something else and then you talk about it. For example, you're thinking of your visit to our hill station, then you talk about mountains. Mountains lead you to the understanding of tracking. Tracking leads you to the understanding of a movie that you saw on mountains. So that is what we call stream of consciousness. That is your reminder of something after looking at one thing. All right, so this is what the story is based on, and the writer becomes omniscient. Why? It has been mentioned that he already knows all the events. All right, he already knows the narratives because Trideep has told him about those narratives. His grandmother has told him about his narratives, and all the knowledge that he has collected from various people. This is about it. Okay. Okay, let's. Okay, now the last passage. A characteristic feature of the narration is that an important event is hardly ever narrated at one go. It comes in installments. The cellar or underground room seen in the old Raj Bazaar house is a case in point. Ella is staying with her mother with Mrs. Price in a London house. So the narrative strategy, the narrative technique is also of how the narrator does not narrate any event in one go. What does it mean? It means, okay, let me switch. It means that the narrator tells you about events in bits and parts, all right? Because this is what happens. He's not talking about a chronology that I was born and then this person I met and then I went to college. No, he's not talking about his own story. He's also having this technique of narrative within a narrative, whereby he's asking Trideep as to what is it that he experienced, and then Trideep is relating an incident about his childhood. Trideep is relating an incident that someone else told him. So there are many stories which have been interweaved, which are interwoven in this narrative. So he says that, the idea of one chronological order, that is, there is an event that begins and then you talk about the event that is not there, and that possibly cannot be there. All right, you will have to tell of the incident as and when it comes to you, as and when it is relevant for you to understand, because there are two three stories running in parallel. He's also talking about his own life, he's also talking about his troubles, his love affairs, his affection, his unrequited love for Ella, and he's also talking about Trideep's narrative. So there are many intermixing of the same, many intersections that you call it. All right, understood? Yes, Priyanka, right. Very good. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, so over here, Ella is staying with her mother. Now there is an example of how the narrative works. Ella is staying with her grandmother, with her mother in with Mrs. Price in her London house. She has come to Calcutta for puja holidays, and both her and the narrator, who are childhood playmates, go to the underground room and play houses under the vast table, just as she played houses with Nick in Mrs. Price's cellar. The mention of Nick's name rings the first alarm bell in the narrator. It is in the cellar that the narrator, now an adult, discovers Ella's love for Nick. Again, it is here that Ella later confesses to Nick's infidelity. In other words, as Professor A. N. Call has pointed out, the fragmented narration of the cellar scene is spread back and forth over the length of the novel. What is the point of this fragmented narration? The narrative, with its time switches, is an attempt on the part of the narrator to understand and make sense of his experience. The narrative is thus also the story of the narrator's growth and maturity. So now you understand the example of what is given. The cellar scene is also not given in full narration, it is in bits and parts, and it is in symbolic form that it is given. There are many stellar scenes whereby the idea of revelation, the idea of deception, the idea of coming to fore in terms of reality, coming in terms to reality is happening for the narrator. All right. Now, okay, yes. Now let's read the narrative form over here. How is narrative organized? Okay, do you see? Yeah, these are okay. Okay. The essays I wanted to share over here, the passages that I wanted to share are here only. So you can refer to these as well. So the narrative is in two parts, entitled Going Away and Coming Home. These are the important parts over here. Okay, now come to the end of page number 11. Another example of a parallel is provided by what the narrator's grandmother says about freedom. In part 1, she reminisces. Reminisces means reminded or remember or yaad karna kisi cheez ko. Reminisces about a class fellow of hers at college who turned out to be a revolutionary. As if she would have killed the English magistrate that the revolutionary in her class was supposed to do. She replies, yes, I would have killed him. It was for our freedom. In the second part, during the 1965 war with Pakistan, she donates a gold chain that she considered. This we have already read also. Now come to okay, over here. Since the author says that lines or borders or divisions are invented and arbitrary and the people everywhere are the same, he uses the metaphor of a mirror to enforce the idea of sameness. This applies to persons, events, and situations. The mirror image first appears on the opening page itself when the narrator imagines himself to be exactly like Trideep. I had decided that he looked like me. This identification with Trideep could be seen as having been completed where the narrator makes love to May at the end of the novel. Ever since Ella introduced the name of Nick as her playmate in London, he has been a spectral presence and adversary to the narrator. After that day, Nick Price became a spectral presence beside me in my looking glass, growing with me but always bigger and better, in some way more desirable. Later on, when he met him in London, he turned out to be the same size as he was. The Magda doll with blue eyes and golden hair is also the mirror image of Ella, with which she identifies herself completely, minus the racially inferior features. The Magda doll with blue eyes and golden hair. So, what are we talking about? We are also talking about the psychological struggles that all these characters had. So, the idea of mirroring image, the idea of identifying yourself onto others. For example, when the writer says, when he talked about the idea of how Trideep would have looked, when he talks about the idea of what narratives Trideep told him about, what stories Trideep told him about his visit to England and how he conducted himself over there, what were the characteristics features of the people over there. He says, in that moment when I had to mentally imagine an image of a young 8-year-old Trideep, I decided onto for myself that he looked exactly like me. So the idea of the poet intense desire to be like who? To be like Trideep. All right, this was his intense and burning desire to be like Trideep. He wanted to mirror his image. He was so influenced by Trideep as a role model, as a storyteller, that he wanted to be like him. And that was the one fact that also bothered his grandmother a lot. I hope you remember the same. So what happens? And in other instances, also we see that how people are trying to reflect or mirror their image onto others. For example, the image of Nick Price that the narrator comes across, he thinks that when Ella told him about the fact that I play houses with Nick Price at Mrs. Price's house and this is what I do, he ultimately and quickly takes him as an adversary, as an enemy, because he feels that he is fighting with Nick Price for Ella's affection and love. All right, so he whenever he stands in front of the mirror, he says that I could see Nick Price, I could mentally see Nick Price growing as my adversary, always better looking and taller and stronger than me. All right, so the idea of inferiority complex that instills in his brain due to the fact that Ella mentions that she's friends with Nick Price. Similar thing happens with who? With Ella. Magda doll, there is a doll that she has with golden hairs and blue eyes, and she totally identifies with her. It shows that this is how she wanted to be. She was extremely beautiful, but she had an almond color complexion and she had black hair, but this is not what she wanted. Due to her exposure to the world and due to her love for Nick, or the idea of having validation from Nick, he wanted to be like these people. He wanted She wanted to be like these people. She wanted to be a part of their culture, and she felt that if I owned a specific kind of complexion, specific color of hair, I will be accepted as a part and parcel of their society. The inferiority complex on the basis of race, on the basis of unrequited love, and on the basis of feeling a void, void, that is something of an emptiness which can only be filled by someone else. All right, so these are the psychological struggles that every character is going through. Are you able to understand? Yes, the novel is switches very fast. Yes. Yes, Upasana, I hope that is now clear to you. I just explained all the characters. I'll be talking about all the characters other times also. Yes, Siddharth. The questions from the exam perspectives are going to be like this only. Don't worry, whatever we are talking about. Okay, 1 second. I'll just scroll to the messages. There are many. Just wait. Let me see. Okay. Okay, Shridev. Good, it's clear. Okay, Neetu. Okay, Kushi, I'll be talking about Ella Timeson again, don't worry. Okay, Nikita. Yes, the character of Ella we will be talking about. Okay, you are saying this. Okay. So Ella in this perspective I've told about that Ella had one doll, Magda doll, which has been called, which had the doll had golden hair, white skin, blue eyes, a typical Anglo-Saxon idea of looking, that is very fair skin, blue eyes, and golden hair. She completely identifies with the doll, that is, she wants to be like the doll. Alright, she wants to be like the doll, and it shows her inferiority complex, as in the racial complex that she had, that she was almond color, she was not so fair, she had dark black hairs, even though she's extremely beautiful. But the very idea of her not being exactly like the people, the British people, the English people, is a problem, the white race. So she had this propensity towards getting a more white skin, more golden hair. So this, she thinks, will give her the kind of recognition and she loves that she wants from the society. Yes, Sri David does feel like a bunch of. Vidhi, do you have any official information regarding the same? Has there been any official news regarding the same? You're asking about the offline classes after 15th June. I don't know. Has there been an official notification? Okay, Nick as a character is very self-involved. Kushi is a character who is a loiter who believes in living for his own self. All right, he also cheats on Ella, and initially also he troubles her in order to make her go rounds for him. Vidhi, what has there been an official notification? Can you share the same? I have not received any. If it is an official notification, it might be. Have you got the timetable for the same? Has there been a timetable for the same? Okay, Khushi, no official. Yes, so Vidhi, you will have to wait for the final notification for us to be able to say anything about the same. Okay. You must have had your schedule for SCC in June. That is what we are sure about. All right. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so also see mirror image has not only been used for the characters, they have already been and also been used for public events of importance. For example, if you look at this is page number 12. The author uses a mirror image not only for private memories but for public events too. For example, the Second World War of 1939, glimpsed in part 1, has its analogue in the communal clashes in Dhaka and Calcutta in 1964 and Indo-Pak War in 1965. The wartime atmosphere on both sides in England and Germany was the same. It was one of exhilaration. When Maya Devi pointed this out, saying that she has been able to watch England coming alive, Alan Tresavan laughed. People don't believe me, he said, but it's the same over there in Germany. It was an odd coming back here, like stepping through a looking glass. When the narrator tries to see some connection between the Calcutta riots and Dhaka riots in 1964, he again resorts to the mirror image. It took me 15 years to discover that there was a connection between my nightmare bus ride from school and events that befell Trideep and others in Dhaka. Again, the simple fact that there has never been a moment in the 4,000 years old history of that map when the places we know as Dhaka and Calcutta were more closely bound to each other than after they had drawn their lines so closely that I in Calcutta had only to look into the mirror to be in Dhaka, a moment when each city was an inverted image of the other, locked into an irreversible symmetry by the line that was to set us free, our looking glass border. Look for other examples. So what are we talking about? He's saying that the idea of destruction that was all around the world, the idea of destruction in the rights of Dhaka and the rights of Calcutta due to that loss of the relic and then founding of the same, he said that they reflected each other in such a way because what was lost? Innocent people lives was lost, property was lost, people's families got destroyed, and this is how it mirrored each other. Even though it was a part of the larger propaganda that some people serve, it was only the normal people, the common people, the children, women, men, families, common person who has been traveling from school to home, from office to some other place for traveling for job, they are the ones who suffered, they are the one who lost their lives. So the idea of mirroring image in terms of public events also, he draws a parallel regarding every riots, every war that we had. All right, clear? Okay, now I'll see if there's okay, you are saying your official YouTube channel has posted. Okay, then it must be, you will get the timetable. All right, don't worry about the same. Okay, Sandhya, it was they did meet, and that is how it happened. Yes, Kushit's right. That he did not want to spend his whole life in guilt, that he could not fight like others. Yes, after 10 years when the narrator visits London. Yes. Okay, good. Let's proceed. Okay, let me see if there's something more to the essay that I have. Um, okay, you can take down this point, this quote from the novel. For example, if you've not read the novel, if there's something from the novel that you directly quote in the examination, you get extra marks. You get good marks. All right. even if you have not read the novel, what you can do, you can simply look at some of the quotes. वो आप याद कर लो and write it in the examination, write it in the answer. So what will happen? The evaluator will have an impression that you did do or make some efforts in order to prove that you have read the text, you understand the text. All right, so some of the quotes you can take down. For example, right, Trideep had given me worlds to travel. This is the narrator speaking. He says, Trideep had given me worlds to travel in, and he had given me eyes to see them with, so that long before he actually moved out of Calcutta. So the quote is, Trideep had given me worlds to travel in, and he had given me eyes to see them with. Trideep has given me worlds to travel in, and he actually gave him eyes to see them. So, what is the idea? The idea of Trideep being his mentor in every true sense. All right. This is one quote. Again, in the same strain, I'm okay. Let me just share it with you. I'll share it on the Telegram group. Just look for the Telegram group. I'm sharing this with you. Wait, all right, I'm sharing. This quote and this you can use for the narratorial voice and how the narrator was clear cut in influence of Trideep. Okay, just 1 second, I'm sharing it on the Telegram group. Then you can all look up to it. Okay, this is it. Yes, have you received? Look at it. I've shared the two of the quotes with you that I want to discuss on the Telegram group. You can have these. You can just write about these in the examination as well. I highlighted these for you. So the next one that I'm talking about is, even as he is rooted in Calcutta, his imaginative universe knows few boundary. He is transported by Trideep's stories and by Ila's to places and times which come alive for him with a powerful immediacy. For the narrator, Trideep, who insists on precision of observation and recollection, is the authors of this immediacy. I could not forget, the narrator says, because Trideep had given me worlds to travel in and he had given me eyes to see them. So this is quite similar to what I have sent you the image for before as well. So both of these are right. You can quote these very important lines. Okay, you have answered. Somebody is writing, we could compare Sudeep heroism with Robbie ignorance because narrator's grandmother always appreciated Robbie for bravery and did not approve Trideep for anything for her. He's a loafer. But in the right moment, only Trideep shows bravery and courage. Yes. You are saying, Saroj, what is the significance of going away and coming home? The idea of this is not just the literal going away from home and coming home. This is also about the idea of looking for identity and finally coming in terms with a sense of how and why and where and with who do you identify yourself with. Coming to the real understanding of life. Okay, Sandhya, you see. Okay, you have the same book of as me as mine. This is on page number 270, all these essays. The page numbers are 270 for the second one, and then okay, then this is 256, but the codes are the same. You can just elaborate it more. I'll also share the whole essay with you. Okay, I'll just scan the copies and send it to you on the group. I'm just pointing out some quotes so that you can remember. Okay, just give me a second. I have some more quotes marked. I'll just look at them and okay, just wait a while. I'll share this whole with you. Okay, actually, I'm feeding you just the important parts, just the parts that you will understand right now. If I share the whole thing, you will get confused. Okay, about maps and mirrors that we have discussed, that this you can understand. I'll just share this with you as well. This you can understand for sure. Okay, this one. This page you will be able to understand. I muted myself accidentally. So I was saying that I'm sharing bits and parts of it because if I share the whole thing, you will get confused. So I'm just pointing and giving you those pointers which we have already discussed about. But even if after that you're not able to understand, the vocabulary is difficult, do not feel nervous, do not panic. It is very simple. Why is my mic getting muted on its own? I don't know. You got it? Okay, you are asking for the page number. Page number is, this is on page number 260 and 261. Yes, Siddharth. You are saying, Kevin, you are saying it is ironical how the grandmother who is so loudly proclaimed how passionate for freedom and patriotism was ready to kill a person, wanted to run away from the scene when she could not have acted upon her claims that she what? Yes. Yes, but we can also, we have to consider everyone here. For example, for Sudeep, even after knowing that he's going to meet his death, he still jumps into the crowd and gets killed. In case of the grandmother, maybe she's old also, she's not that young anymore. And also the idea of how she felt that, I, why should I die for this person? This was just a brother of her father that she thought she could claim a right upon. So that situation also we have to understand that what do did that even represent for them the act of bravery the for the main character who died, that it's Sudeep, nothing came out of it. Even after that, Khalil and the grandfather figure was dead. But for some people, they cannot even stand the fact that they did not do anything, even if it cost them their life. They have to act. Okay, Sridev, this is the book. Let me just share a picture with you also. This is Oxford. This is an Oxford book, The Shadow Lines by Oxford. I'll just share the picture with you. Okay, I'm sharing a picture with you. The cover might have changed. This is an old edition, but you will be able to find it. The Oxford edition, I mean. Okay, I've shared the cover as well. Okay, now clear? Okay, Ayushi, thank you so much that you are able to understand that you find the teaching style friendly. Thank you so much. I just want you to learn, all of you to gain something out of it. All right. It would be no use if you are not able to learn something from it. Okay. Just always keep improving yourself. Every day you must have a target that I'm going to add value to my education. I'm going to add value to my life, and this is how I'm going to go about it. I'm going to read something, even if for half an hour. I'm going to learn something new, because this is a stage that you have to learn. All right, that learning is your primary job. As a student, learning is your primary job. I'm not saying that you will not have frolicking and fun. Go out, go on trips, have meetings with your friends. That is completely fine, but at least for 2 3 hours in a day you should find the time for yourself, for your self improvement. All right, and I'm happy that I'm able to help you do that. Communal conflicts, Saroj, you can definitely refer to what the partition thing that we talked about in the very beginning, Dhaka and the riots of Calcutta. All these you can, include in the answer, and you can also talk about the mirror image that the writer uses for the violence that has been committed into various places, but the effects have been universal throughout the country. Clear? Okay, so I have shared this. Okay, then let's talk, but I'll just read out the pointers that I've already shared with you so that you do not have any confusion. Also read the Telegram one that I've shared and ask me if there's any problem. First of all, read them and tell me if you are able to understand it or not. Then we will discuss it first and then we will go on. Just take a read, take a look and ask me if there's any problem. Okay, I'll read it out for you as well. Let's read it together. So the first one is, we never get to know the narrator's name, nor can we. This is on page number 260 for those who have the same edition. So we never get to know the narrator's name, or nor can we visualize what he looks like, except through occasional glimpses of the various other persons whose mirror image he's supposed to be. Ella, she and I were so much alike that I could have been her twin. Or Nick, a spectral presence beside me in my looking glass. So the idea that the narrator himself was never able to imagine himself or him in absence of the other. Do you understand? That is, he always defined himself in comparison to people. That is, if you asked him that how does he look like or feel like, he will say that, I feel so much acquainted and so much akin with Ella that I feel as if I could have been her twin. I feel so different from Nick Price that I think that he's my adversary, he's my enemy. So the idea of always defining your own self in terms of other people, in terms of looking for their validation, that is, you can only define yourself in comparison to something that you're not or something that you are. All right, clear? Then we have the transparency of the unnamed and undescribed narrator. There was a question when somebody was asking me about the name of the narrator. He's obviously unnamed. Lets different persons, events, places luminously enter his story. So the idea of the transparency of an unnamed, undescribed narrator. So what happens? Because of the fact that he has not been named, there is not a lot of his own self that he's revealing directly, but due to this fact only, his personality and character becomes fluid. That is, he can include every other character. He's through his own character, he's telling about all other characters. For example, when he talks about himself, he gives you the hint and insight into the character of Ella. He gives you an insight into the Nick Price's character. So this is how you have to talk about it. Okay, Upasana, you're asking me how should we write an answer and what's the technique of writing answer. See, when you're writing an answer, my basic rule is always make a rough page towards the end of the answer sheet that you get. Towards the end of it, write clearly with your ball pen, rough page. Over there, just brainstorm before writing an answer. This is very, very important. You're literature students, it is very important for you to think before you write. So make 3 points. Decide that I'm going to write an introduction. Introduction can be, so for example, the codes that I've given you, you can obviously write them in the introduction so that it appears that yes, you have read the text, you have the knowledge of the text, and the evaluator will give you extra points for the same. So what will happen after writing the introduction, decide on 3 points that, okay, these are the 3 factors that I'm going to discuss about. For example, you will say, I will discuss about the narrator in terms of how he feels one with Rideep. I will talk about the narrator in terms of how he feels very different from Nick Price. Then I will talk about the narrator as in his unrequited love for Ella. So there are 3 things that you are going to discuss, 3 or 4 things always. All right. Then write about these things in different passages. Always and every time make different passages. The clearer your answer is, the more marks you're going to get. Always keep it neat, clean, and precise. The idea of precise writing. 3 pointers you have already made. Think about it. Give 2 minutes to thinking. For example, if there is a 15-marker question, always go for 4.5 page. 4.5, I mean back and forth, like this. Back and forth. All right. Back and forth, back and forth. 4.5, 5 pages you can make. Always go for quality. All right. You have to go about quantity also, but always also think about the quality. So if you have allotted 30 minutes to the very first question, for example, what happens, this was my strategy, that in the very beginning, our brain takes time to warm up. So the first question, if you're attempting, I started with the questions which were marked the highest. So the 15 marker I took first. So what I did, I always warmed up my brain. That is, I gave 5 minutes for the first question, 30 minutes to the first question, and 25 each to the others. All right, so what I did, and what you should probably do, is that give 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to thinking about what you're going to do. 3 minutes you can give to what points, what all points you're going to include, what quotes are you going to write, if there's any fact that you know that you're going to write about, write this in the rough section. And make it clear. Do not get confused. For example, you might make a mess, and in the next question you will not be able to understand. Just mark a boundary and write this. You can take 2 pages for rough pages towards the very end, the last sheet. And then what you can do, write just in abbreviation. Do not write full sentences. That will lead you to waste time. Do not do that. We do not have that much time. And then quickly after 3-4 minutes, start writing. You will find that you will it will double your speed when you're sorted that what is it that you want to write, and you will not feel any regret towards the end of the answer that, oh, I could have written this better. Clear? Is it helpful? I hope that is. Okay, now let us come to the second point that I've shared the material with you. Okay, so maps in this novel are not confined to atlas. Floors, plans drawn in the dust by children playing houses provide a clue to past and future reality. Long before the narrator left home, he knew an A to Z map of London so well, particularly page 43 square 2F, where Price House was located, and that was the first time he came to London. So the idea of the poet having such, the writer having such a vivid imagination that even before he visited London in person, he knew all about the place, he knew all about the streets, he knew all about the address. So the idea of maps, not just telling you what the places are, but attaching you and making a bond, making a relation between the past, future, and what is to come. All right, very important. Then Nick too is first mentioned by Illa in the second of the make-believe played under a vast dining table. So the idea of future events that are going to happen, future characters who are going to be introduced. Okay. Okay, Upasana, great. Okay, Sarabjit, great that you liked it, that it is clear to you. Very good. Okay, Khushi. Okay, good that you understood. It was helpful to you. Great. Now, just okay, so you were asking me about the class. I also saw it. So there has been some official announcement by the principal as well. So from 15 June onwards, because the examinations were going on, the regular colleges, some classes have been shifted to the online mode. So due to the examination that were happening, the classes could not be happened offline. But from 15 June onwards, the classes might as well be arranged offline. Okay, that is to answer your question. This is done. Okay. Okay, separation anxiety growing up. So those who have the text, do read the critical essays. You will find it very, very helpful, very satisfying. They give you new perspectives. All right, I personally feel very happy when you read critical analysis. Because sometimes it happens, you might have noticed that whatever you analyze for yourself, whatever thought process you had, what questions you had, they are also dealt with by those critics. And when you know that, and when you talk to it about people, you feel good, you feel great that there was something that I was thinking about and the critic has analyzed it, so there is a point that is coming through. Okay, let's continue. Okay, Sadia, I'm very happy that you're able to, that you were, just 1 second, what is it? Okay, Sadia, that's great that you were able to understand. Okay, happy about it. Good. Yes, Roshni, you should remember the author, history also, a bit of it. Tell the other quote. What? What is it? So Kushi, your writing Ila was very bound. Okay, if I read your answer, it would reveal something to the ones who are reading the novel. So let us keep to that. So yes, you're talking about Ila's character. Yes, I agree with that. Okay, let me read out. She will never leave him because of her love that should have been love. Okay, it was very bound by her emotions as a person. I think she should have left Nick when he cheated on her, but instead she said he knows she will never leave him because of her love. That should not be love after she's feeling distressed and is always not modernized version of herself. She's also, yes, true, true. Instead of sacrificing yourself every moment, dying every moment, it is better to take you out from any kind of toxic relationship that you have with anyone. It is not worth it. Human life is worth more than anything. This life is very precious. You should be able to experience it in all its happiness, because the ultimate goal of life is what? The ultimate goal of life is not earning a certain amount of money, owing certain amount of things. No, the ultimate life or aim of life is to live it. That is what life is given to you for, and living it involves your being happy, you're being successful, you're being trying hard to be successful, you're earning good amount of money, being able to buy things for yourself. But the most important part is none of these should come in the way of living your life. You never know, it's life is too short to be wasted like this. All right, so you have to make the best of everything. For example, as a student, you have to be happy about the fact that I have to prove that I was a good student. I'm a good student. When I'm learning, I will learn to the fullest, so that I can be happy about my learning process, that I made the most of it. So this is the approach that you have to employ in every true sense in your life. Yes, Kushi, you should do that. You can write the answer. You can write the answer and post it here also. I can see it. Yes, you should always practice. Okay, good, Simar Kaur. I think that is troublesome for you because, but this is very explicit in the summary as well that we are going to discuss. So be quick about it. But don't worry, it will not take away from the fun that the novel has. It's an amazing read. You will still enjoy it. Okay, don't worry. So there you're asking, ma'am, can you explain the underground room till as an adult? The text you shared in the telegram. Which one are you talking about? Uh, okay, let me just look at the picture that I shared. There is one Shivangi Gehlot. She's asking why she's not able to join the class. I don't know. So you are saying what? Okay, the underground room in Rai Bazaar house with the shrouded furniture and large dining table reoccurs in the novel as an actual location and a remembered site holding a clue to Ila's shabby secret as a child when she was abandoned by Nick and as an adult when she is betrayed by him. So the idea of the underground room. So Ila from the very beginning does one thing. She denies the fact that Nick betrayed her, abandoned her as a child. She always told the writer that, we are great friends, but he was very nonchalant towards her. He had no emotional attachment to her. And then later on, also, she wants to create a false front of her being in a happy marriage. She does not want to accept the fact that Nick is cheating on her, because there is always a sense of validation that she wants from him. That only when he validates her, accepts her, is that she exists truly. right? So this is what it is. So the idea of the storeroom whereby she lies and all her secrets lie. The underground room that we're talking about. That's great to pass. I'm very happy to hear that you're able to understand and it is helping you a lot. Kushi, we will be continuing with this until we get this over with. All right. Now let's move on. I'll give you the quotes later on as well. Don't worry. I'll be giving it to you time and again. Let's move on with the text. Okay, let me see one thing. Okay, this is also one information about the background. About the some of the essays have already been given away here. Even if you're not going to go about or you're not able to cover all the essays in the back of the book, at least do this one. This has a lot of what is nation like Ernest Renan. Do you see there is this description of all the characters on page number 15, 16, on page number 15. So you can also theme and characters in shadow lines, very important. If you're not able to read the whole novel, you can at least do this. Okay, now we will do what? We will do this one. Themes and characters in the shadow lines, okay? Just take a minute before that. Do read what we have already done. If there's any confusion, if there's anything that you wish to ask, then ask me. Then we will start with the next one. The theme and narratives in shadow lines, themes and characters. We'll be talking about them. Take your time. Nikita, in the examination, you will get these questions only the narratorial voice. What do you think is the idea of mirrors and, you know, maps? So all these passages which has already been given to you, there is one advantage. I'll tell you one trick, one secret to the trade, although it's not a big secret. But whatever is given at the back of the critical essays from any edition, by and large, all the questions are formed around them because these are the critical issues that the narrator has tried to bring to the fore and the critics have explored. So most of the time the questions are from these only. So when you have read the passages at the back, you will see that you are able to answer all the questions. Kevin, you are saying Ella is in denial that Nick does not love her. Yes, that's true. Okay, so take few minutes, read what you want to discuss, and then we will talk about it. Okay, just read what we have already covered. If there's anything that you wish to ask, you can ask me. Okay, I'm giving you a 2 minutes window. Just look at the questions. Anything that you wish to ask, you can ask me now. We will start with themes and character, cover a bit part of the same as well. Okay, just look at it, have a look, and then ask me, and we will continue with the themes and characters. I'm looking for some quotes that I can find on the same. If there are any that you will be able to better understand. Yes, Nikita, do not skip the critical essays. Okay, Sandhya, these critical essays, see, I can share, but it will not be very clear. You can also find the book. The book has these, and the study material also has the critical essays, but I will share some critical essay on the group also, don't worry. I'll share it after the class. Yes, Divya, you can do that. That is much appreciated. Vidhi, that is for you to find out, all right? We'll find out during the course of the novel. Okay, Sadaf, you're saying the quotes. Yes, you can write down it in the examination. I'll be showing the full essay. I'll show the images of the same, the book that I have. And okay, Saroj, you're asking how does Amitav Ghosh portray arbitrariness of national borders in the shadow lines? So the arbitrariness, that is as to when do we say that the system is arbitrary, because there is no transparency, there is no reason of why what a thing is specifically happening. So the idea that people have drawn these boundaries on at their own free will and there has been no actual reason behind the same is what the writer is talking about. You can also include the idea of shadow lines, that is something that you cannot catch up to, something that disappears, something is that just cannot be defined. So the idea of identity, which has been closely knitted with the idea of shadow lines. So those who are also wondering about the significance of the title, these are all that you have to talk about in it. All right. Roshni, Ella is an Indian girl. I will also be sharing the essay. Don't worry, you will get a lot many hints as to how to write the answer from the same. Okay, just let's continue. Let's read about the characters. Amitabh Ghosh announces his principal theme of nationalism and also his own attitude to it through the title of the book itself, The Shadow Lines. He distrusts nationalism as a destructive force that draws lines of division between people and nations, and that is a very source of terrifying violence. Now, you will also get hints for the writing of how to justify the title. These lines, he believes, look at it clearly, mark it, these lines, he believes, are arbitrary and inverted and illusionary and have no business to be. Therefore, they are shadow lines, as if it is illusionary, it is not permanent, they are all fleeting and temporary. As a corollary, he inquires into the meaning of distance and also into how the nation state expects the people living within it to relate to it. The exploration is done at two levels, the personal and the public, with both coming together in the 1964 Dhaka riots in which Sudeep, Ukil Babu, and Khalil died. Amitav Ghosh's treatment of the theme tends to be idealistic. According to him, it was perfectly possible for India and the British to interact at a personal level without any barriers whatever. He illustrates this by showing the contacts between two families located so far apart as in India and in England over three generations, starting with the camaraderie between Justice Chandrasekhar Datta Chaudhary and Lionel Theravassan in Calcutta in the late 19th century. The contacts continue in post-independent India in the form of visits to and fro and climaxed by love between Trideep and May. Amitav Ghosh's ideal is contained in the Tristan Iseult love story, which Snipe had told Trideep in the cellar in 1939. The story, he says, happened everywhere, wherever you wish. It was an old story, the best story in Europe, when Europe was a better place, a place without borders and countries. It was a story of a hero, Tristan, A very sad story about a man without a country who fell in love with a woman across the seas. Three Thieves recalls the ideal, calling May my love, my own true love, my love across the seas. And then he dies. A narrator for whom Trideep is a role model finds love and fulfillment in the arm of May. Interpersonal relations find their perfection in love. So the idea of what Tristan and Isolde love story that Trideep had thought about. I will explain this to you just one second. Then read this one also. The issue of relation between people across the nation is, however, more complicated than is suggested by the writer's presentation of it. Amitav Ghosh himself hints at the complexities posed by racism by giving two examples. In one, an Irishman, Mike, who is a visitor in Mrs. Price's house during World War II, insultingly asks their guest Sahib if he had killed any Englishman yet. When the Sahib retreats in horror, Mike replies, "So what makes you Indian then?" Later, during Ella and her mother's stay at Mrs. Price's house in the 60s, we are told how on one occasion Nick had run away from Ella, leaving her to face racial insults from white children. But these examples are only hints and don't affect the writer's romantic view of the perfectibility of personal relations across the nation. The writer appears to be so committed to the idea of a world society without national borders that he appears to have decided to overlook the complexities that bedevil such relations. So what are we talking about? The writer is saying that the lines that the boundaries have created, the lines of culture, the lines of having of being from different country, the lines of demarcation between people are fluid. That is what the writer is talking about. That is what is the target of Amitav Ghosh. He says that I want to do away with these rights. I want to do away with these distinctions, and that is what exactly he's aiming for in the relationship that he shows between May and Trideep, and later between May and the narrator, shows that the ultimate or the sublimation of these relationships, which are based on demarcation, is that of coming together of both of these parties. So he shows three generations of intermingling between a family who is based in India and a family which is based in the West, that is England. So do you understand? Are you able to get through the point that how, what lines is the writer talking about? What melting away of the boundaries is the writer talking about? This is exactly what is mentioned. This is exactly what is targeted. All right, clear? Are you able to understand? Is there any problem? Okay, Nikita, I hope now the relevance is clear to you. Yes, so Pastor, it is very important that you read the background readings as well and the critical essays. I've already told you they play a very poignant role when you're writing an answer. You will find that all the topics that have been covered in the Oxford or critical edition anywhere are going to be of great help. Why? Because examination, when you're going to face examination, the questions are mostly and probably from these essays only. Yes, Pride and Prejudice must have been there in the first semester as well. Okay, Sarabjeet, what is it that you're asking about? Okay, okay. So, see, I'm talking about the idea of blurring lines that Amitav Ghosh as a writer is obsessed with and is the undercurrent of the novel itself. That is the Shadow Lines by Amitav Ghosh that we are reading. So the undercurrent of the novel is what? Is that of melting away of these boundaries. He said that there is no essential problem in an Englishman interacting with an Indian person, and the example starts with a multi-generation relationship that the Price family shares with them. And also he talks about the idea of, while there might be some, might be some incidents which are against the strain, for example, that of Nick Price abandoning Ella. In one of the story, what happens that some group of white boys are there, a group of white boys is there, and they're trying to racially abuse Ella, all right, the character of Ella. They are trying to abuse her. They are trying to Eve tease her on the basis of her race, on the basis of the pigmentation of her color, and Nick Price abandons her in that precise moment. But Ella will never accept this. Ella is one of the characters who will not accept the fact that she has been abandoned by Nick initially, and also later she is being cheated on by the same person. All right, so she's running away from the same because there's a validation that she's finding or looking for and wanting from Nick exactly. All right, that validation of, for example, the Magda dog that we talked about. Do you remember that? The idea of the Magda dog doll being very fair and having golden hair. So this was the exact point whereby we were able to know that Ella herself suffers from a racial complexity, or as an inferiority complex, which makes her or draws a propensity towards having the same exact features as the Anglo-Saxon race. She feels that if I get all these characteristics features right, I'll be more accepted by the society, and this shows that she has a propensity towards being an Anglophile. Anglophile. All right, understood? Okay, Kevin, that is so great that you are able to understand. Thank you. All right, now, okay, so these are brief notes on the characters. I've already told you that you have to read the master text for sure, because if you're not reading the master text and we are just going for supplementary material, what happens? You will not be able to understand the essence of the same. So it is very important for you to cover the master text. I cannot reiterate the importance of the same enough, because you as literature students also have to justify having read what has been ascribed in your course, what has been included in your course. So even if you're not able to read it right now, and when we finish it off, it's completely fine. You can continue to read it before your examination, and even if till then you're not able to read it, you have to read it later on. This is very, very important. You have to justify you being a literature student. All right, forget about the examinations that you are going to pass. It is not just about passing the examination, it is also about what of you justifying what you have already achieved. A degree that you have achieved, you have to justify the texts that are there. You should not be embarrassed in front of people who will ask you about a specific novel which was there in your course and you have no hint about it. Do not put yourself in that position. So do read the master text. You can go for any edition. I've also shared the edition that I have, that is the Oxford one. You can go for critical essays also. The critical edition also you can go for, because there are a lot of good essays in it as well. So this is what you have to do. Let's get a brief about the characters as well now. So Trideep is a young intellectual who lives intensely with the help of his imagination and who teaches his nephew to do likewise. The narrator's grandmother is a strong character who is strict disciplinary. We have already discussed about this character. I'm just reading it out for you. Just read it with me so that you know these are the basics of the characters. Then, yes, I'm zooming in the image, is a strong character who is strict disciplinarian and who is also a fervent nationalist. As a college girl, she has admired a young revolutionary in her class and would have been prepared to kill if necessary for freedom. In 1965 war with Pakistan, she donates her precious gold chain to the war fund. Again, for freedom, essentially, it is her nationalistic spirit that induces her to Dhaka to bring her uncle to safety. So see, these are the paradoxes that you have to analyze for yourself. For example, somebody was saying that, ma'am, in the very beginning, we read about how the grandmother was a revolutionary. She could have done anything for the nation. She was ready to kill the English officer for the nation. But when it comes to protecting her uncle from the mob that had gathered around his rickshaw, she was the first one to say that, okay, rush away, we have to get out of the place. But that also is for you to understand. That is the understanding that we will be forming towards the end of the novel. That is one of the pertinent questions that is there for you to ponder and for me to ask and also analyze. Is that of is there is it really an act of cowardice on the part of the grandmother to not get down the get down of the car, or is it really a heroic act of Trideep to throw himself at the mob? What was it that inspired him? What was it that deterred the grandmother from staying into the car and inspired Trideep to run away and trying to save Khalil and the grandfather in the rickshaw. This is one of the paradox in the novel that you will find, that you will have to answer for yourself, analyze for yourself, and that is the beauty of it. It is an open-ended stance. You can never say what was the exact point. This is exactly what May Price also points towards the end, that all my life I have been blaming myself for behaving in a certain way that led to the death of Trideep. But after a point of time I realized it was not me, it was Trideep who was willing to sacrifice his own life. And therefore I cannot be the one the onus should be put on. All right, and should not be the one who should be held responsible for the same, for that kind of crisis, for that tragedy. I understand that I need to stop blaming myself for the same. All right, so these are the facts that you need to analyze. Okay, so the grandmother figure, who otherwise was very revolutionary, who also gave up one of her ornament in order to fund the war. She was the one who was ready to do any act of violence in order to see her country free. But here she keeps mum. Here she wants to fly to her own safety and that of others. So what is it that we get from the same? So these are the questions that you have to analyze for yourself. Clear? That we will be analyzing towards the end of the novel, which I think it will be in the next class that we will be finishing off. So these are some of the issues that we will also be dealing with. Meanwhile, you also have to read the essays that I've shared on the Telegram group, the quotes that I've shared. I will share the full essays as well. I hope you received the same. All right. Then okay, this is the essay. What is nation? I hope you remember we talked about the idea of nationalism, nation, state, and nation. So do refer to that, and you can also read this essay on your own. Now, just one thing we have to do. Okay. Ella belongs to a generation of young Indians who were born immediately after independence and who had the means to go across the sea and live life as they wanted to. She's hung upon Mrs. Price's son Nick and marries him, and though distressed by his infidelities, cannot bring herself to leave him, her cosmopolitanism appears superficial. So when we talk about the character of Ella, I've already told you that there is an essential form of complexities and inferiority complex that Ella character suffers from. All right, and we cannot deny it on any which level possible. For example, in Raya Bazaar, the scene whereby she's playing houses with the narrator and she tells him about the fact that she plays houses with Nick, but there is no mention of how an incident occurred whereby Nick abandoned her when she was racially abused by a group of white boys. All right, but there is no mention of the same because Ella is someone who is trying to break away from the family which depicts or which stands for tradition, of a certain sense of way of dressing. I mean, not just the family in itself is very progressive, not so much in her case, but quite progressive. But it's a society, it's a system of values that she has waged a war against. All right, so she is shown as a rebellious figure who wants to act in a certain way and defy all the rules. And she feels that this act of her being married to a white man or having an affair with white men is also part and parcel of this scenario, that she can prove to the world that all right, this is how I am and this is how I am going to be. All right, so this point also you have to keep in mind, that she deliberately turns a blind eye to the infidelities that Nick Price's subjects her to. All right, he has multiple affairs apart from the marriage, extramarital affairs whatsoever are we talking about. In the very beginning also, he never showed great interest in Ella's life. He was very nonchalant towards her, but she had to prove it to herself and to the world that she's rebellious and she's cosmopolitan. There is a culture that she feels affinity towards, and therefore the example again of the Magda doll that we talked about, the idea of a doll having golden hairs, white skin, blue eyes, the typical features of an Anglo-Saxon race that she wants to belong to, the idea of again of being an Anglophile. So in the character of Ella, you have to have this understanding and you have to mention this for always. All right, then we have the narrator, a young man who looks up to his uncle Trideep as a mentor and a role model. Obviously, he's not named. The very idea of his being not named and not defined gives him what? the fluidity of including the description of all other characters. For example, there is no one description that defines the narrator himself. We only hear about the narrator in terms of what other people are or are not. For example, he says that I was so similar to Ella that I could have been her twin. So the very idea of him identifying with Ella and then saying that, you know, Nick Price should is so different from me as I imagine him. All right, the picture that I have of him, the ghostly image that I form of him, the mental image that I have of him, of growing as I'm growing with time in front of the mirror, is the same as, just one second, where is this? Is the same as what? Is the same, okay, one second. So the idea of the writer, so the idea of the narrator saying that whatever, however he defines himself, it is in the absence of presence of others. So he says that Nick Price is so different from me that I consider him as my adversary. And why is he also his adversary? Because I've already told you this point. Can you answer? Why is also Nick Price his adversary? What more reason for the same? Why does narrator thinks of Nick Price as an adversary? Can you answer that question? In what other terms as well? Okay, I'll be checking the live Q&A. So answer. What is the reason that the narrator feels that Nick Price is his adversary? Why? For who? All right, try to answer that question. Meanwhile, we are talking about what the character of Ella. I hope you know what angles, what things you have to introduce. The narrator also we have talked about. Then May is a mature young girl whose compassion extends to all, including animals. Likewise, her sympathies extend to all people irrespective of the country of their origin. She represents cosmopolitanism and humanism at its best, right? I hope you understand that we have already talked about it. Nick is a very young, ordinary Englishman for whom Ella takes a strong fancy. He's disinclined to exert himself and earn a dignified living for himself. All right, he is very self-contained and self-centered that we have already discussed about. So let me see if anybody has answered. Let me look at your answers. Very good. Yes, for Ella. Siddhi, yes, you have given the right answer. Yes, Kevin, you are also given the right answer because he thought Nick is something is contending him for Ila's affection and love. Very good, Kevin. Okay, Kushi, you have also got the right answer because he likes Ila. So the idea of having an adversary, that is what the writer has been about. That he has always defined himself in terms of presence or absence of a certain character. Therefore, his being untitled and unnamed, which gives him a kind of fluidity, Fluidity, fluidity of including and inculcating all the features of other character. Therefore, in the very beginning, he defines himself in terms of who? Trideep. Therefore, the idea of mirror images that we talked about, that how he feels when he talks about the idea of what all narratives Trideep gave me and how can I define myself in terms of him, or how do I imagine him as an 8-year-old, what he does. He says that I have deciphered the fact, or I have concluded, and this is my conclusion for the same, that Trideep looked exactly like me. And therefore, I'm going to imagine myself in all these scenarios. But he's obviously aware, acutely aware of the fact that no matter how much he has heard about it, how much he has, talked about this, how much he knows about it, how much he knows London even without visiting it, he knows that the same kind of emotion that Trideep went through, he cannot go through. All right, so the idea of the absence, the idea of the lack, the void that the narrator feels, and how he tries to fill this void with different characters by becoming someone's alter ego, by becoming someone, by becoming someone's adversary. So the definition of your own self in terms of what you see in others. All right, I hope you get that. Yes, Shilpa. Yes, Sandhya. Yes, Khushi. Very good. Khushi Patra, Khushi Tiwari, all of you have given the right answer. Very good. Khushi, you're saying I think Ella was also a victim in sense that she could not talk to anyone about Nick because they had their own opinion of what she was suffering in changing worlds. Very good. Yes, the idea of feeling suffocation due to the inability of not talking to other people. Yes. Nivodita, you are saying whereas it was wrong on the grandmother's part that she did not thought of stepping down from the car because she wanted to contribute to freedom. It was not the right thing to. Yes, that we have to still analyze. Yes. Okay, Divya, happy to hear that you understood it completely. Okay, so any problem that you want to ask, anything that is not clear to you, now you can ask me. Sandhya, you are saying ma'am is conveying that the partition and bloodshed could have been avoided if the Indian people themselves discussed about the matter calmly and there was no need for the borders. Yes, when we talked about the idea of the Britishers. Yes. Yes, Nikhil, you have also the right answer. Anything else that you want to ask about? Anything that is not clear, you can ask me now. I'm looking at the live Q&A. Also, the quotes that I've shared on the Telegram group, I hope that's clear to you. I've also explained it. I'll share the full essays as well. But it's better if you buy one copy of any book, any, what is it? Any edition, I mean, of the same book. Okay. Okay, Divya, you're asking me, ma'am, can we say they were feeling all those because of lack of communication in them? Who are you referring to, Divya? Can you mention? Khushi jumping from a car and got killed for no reason, but means that you are a nationalist. Reason not means that you are a nationalist. Okay, yes, right, Khushi. So this is good. This is what you have to think about. It. How do you feel just the presence of the presence of grandmother in first place in Dhaka, despite knowing the fact that there are going to be communal right, was it right for her to be headstrong, to have put everyone to such a situation of geoparity first? Then the idea of whether who can be called a nationalist, that Trideep wanted to prove that he was a nationalist, that he was a passionate person, that he jumped at the mob, jumped out of the car, or or was it just that he was so worried about May and his image of how May perceived him? Was he inspired to do that, or was it something greater? Or in that moment, was it that he found the real purpose of his life? So you have to understand it in this way. Okay, Shilpa, that's very good that everything is clear to you. Yashita, no, of course. All right then. Okay, so we will continue with the same. Shattered lines is all what we are going to do. Again, I'm repeating the same point. I want you to read the novel. I want you to start with the novel at least so that you have an idea what it is about. Critical essays are very, very important. They give you an idea of how to present your answers in the examination, and you get marked more if you have the right quotes, the right critics on your side. All right. So we will continue with this in the next one also. All right. I hope you all have a good day. Let's call it a day then. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Do read the novel. We are going to finish with Shadow Lines tomorrow. So you should bring your queries if there's anything that you're not able to understand, anything that you specifically wish my help on, you should bring it. All right. Okay, all of you have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Clear?